Welcome to another episode of WTF Cinema.
Welcome back, everybody. Today's episode is a very special fan request episode. I know. I was as surprised as anybody, but we got fans! At least one. Anyway, as much as I enjoy picking on those obscure films that nobody's heard of, and believe me, I do enjoy that, today is a blockbuster film. This is Mission Impossible 2. Now, the plot of this one is extremely simple, even for an action film, so hopefully this will go pretty quick. Let's go ahead and dive right in. We start out in Australia, where most of our movie takes place.
Every search for a hero must begin with something that every hero requires. A villain.
And with the very first line of dialogue, I've already got a problem. See, the scientist says that in order to develop this hero, this cure that they wanted to manufacture, first they had to make a villain. I've never seen it work that way. Usually you have a hero and then the villains try to attack the hero instead of the other way around, but that's fine. But from a drug perspective, I don't see where that makes sense. I want to develop a super cure, so first I have to create a super disease. That doesn't seem like good planning to me. A scientist is smuggling out the disease and the cure with the help of Tom Cruise. God, could you imagine being stuck next to Tom Cruise on a flight? It'd be all, Lord Z knew this, and Lord Z knew that. The scientist shares the most crucial part of our plot. See, after being infected for 20 hours with this disease, the cure will no longer work. So you got to get the cure in there in the first 20 hours. Again, why they created this disease in the first place when they just wanted the cure, I don't know. In an unsurprising plot twist, it turns out that Tom Cruise is actually another agent in disguise, and he betrays the agency, making off with the cure, not realizing that the disease itself was actually in the scientist's bloodstream. He crashes the plane, he kills everybody. I say it's an unsurprising plot twist because the whole disguised as somebody else thing is pretty much done to death in this movie. It happens about 6 times. Where it turns out, oh, not who you thought I was. It gets to the point where as you're watching the film, you pretty much assume everybody is somebody else in disguise. And now we come to the biggest issue I have with this film, and the main reason this film is here for you to see. And I know people are going to argue with me about this. I can already hear you arguing with me about this. But this movie takes the action sequences way too far into the realm of absurdity. Now, I don't want you to accuse me of not liking action films. You see the Road Warrior poster right here? That's not there by accident. I didn't just move in and there it was. This is one of my favorite movies. And I watch Die Hard every Christmas, alright? And I know you can't hold an action film to the same standard as, I don't know, Mirror Mask or something more dramatic. More story-driven. I understand that. It's a much lower standard we're talking about here. Yeah, you can have thousands of bad guys not able to shoot the one good guy. Fine. This is what action movies are, but this film goes way too far in places. And it's very hard to get into the action when I'm watching the guy do stuff that I know is not possible at all. And it's not just once or twice, it's continually throughout the film. Tom Cruise repeatedly does physically impossible things, and I'm expected to just sit here and munch popcorn, and I can't do it. How do I know it goes too far? Here's the scene where we first meet Tom Cruise for real. We see him rock climbing. We can even see that large portions of the rock that he must have climbed to get where he is now is completely smooth. You cannot rock climb something completely smooth without any kind of equipment, and he has none. And then he starts doing moves on the rocks. And here's the reason I know this is impossible for a human being to perform. The actor dislocated his shoulder doing these stunts. He was wearing a harness, which they CG'd out for the movie, and wearing a harness and having all the safety equipment that they would have around a humongous budget movie star, he dislocated his shoulder. So what would a human being without all the safety equipment do? They would die. They would die quickly. But we're supposed to believe that this is how this character unwinds, because he's just that badass. That, you know, to relax and unwind, he kills himself. Now it's time for the plot to get started. Tom is told that he has to put together a team of specialists to track down this mysterious thing called Chimera, which we know is a virus, but the character doesn't. Even though the same agency is sending him as sent the previous guy who betrayed them, and the previous guy betrayed them to steal it to sell it, therefore knew what it was. So how the agent found out, but the agency that knows everything about everybody doesn't, fine, whatever. He's told that one member of his team must consist of this super well-known thief. I hate this in movies. This drives me nuts. So she's a world-renowned thief, right? World famous. And everybody knows her name. Not only that, but they know where she is, because the very next scene is him interrupting her in the middle of a job to recruit her. In the middle of a job where she's a thief. Thieves, who in order to do their job must not be recognizable. But world-famous thief, they know her name. So the agency knows who she is, knows where she is, but continues to let her roam around free, I guess in case they need her someday. She's not locked up, even though this agency, which I think is a government agency, knows who and where she is. Are you telling me they've got other criminals on speed dial in case they need them? Did they have Bin Laden on speed dial in case they needed somebody who was really good at making videos in caves? This doesn't make sense to me. We know who she is, we know where she is, but we let her roam around free despite the fact that she's a highly sought-after criminal. So, after interrupting her job, the two of them have a really nice car chase sequence. Ignoring for a moment the fact that they're having a casual conversation while speeding down the road. I don't know if you've ever tried to talk to somebody in another car. It ain't easy. I will give John Woo, the director, this. He does film action sequences quite beautifully. After that death-defying car chase, the two of them fall into bed together. Known each other for a couple of hours, so it's time for the sex. Really. She's held out long enough. As a chick in an action movie, she's practically virginal at this point, waiting a whole 2 hours after meeting somebody to have sex with them. I really admire her restraint. Now, am I being unfair by putting all of this on her instead of the guy? Well, he's a secret agent. He's supposed to recruit her by any means necessary. Now, if he can charm the pants off of her, then that's what he's gonna do. So, yeah, morally, I'm more inclined to put this on the chick. Whether that's right or wrong, that's just how I'm doing it. Hannibal Lecter finally gives Tom Cruise his mission briefing. Here's what you got to track down, here's why you needed to recruit the girl. It turns out they don't need the girl for her thief skills, despite the fact that we've firmly established she's a world-famous thief and she's got all these skills. We don't need those. We need her because she's the ex-girlfriend of the agent who went rogue. Not only that, but the agency also knows that she left the agent, and the agent really wants her back. So not only did this agency keep track of who all of its agents were dating, but it kept track of their emotional profiles and how much they were in agreement with the breakup. Probably also knows what kind of porn he likes and the songs he has on his iPod. But they don't know what the thing is that he stole. Tom, of course, is very upset about this. Because, see, he's in love with the girl. And he hates the idea of asking her to go and pretend to have feelings for the rogue agent so that they can track him down and save the world from whatever this threat is. They've known each other for a day at this point. Maybe 2 days with travel time so he can meet with Hannibal Lecter. And he's in love. And the thief's not happy about this, so the master spy, whose job relies on lies and intrigue and pretending to be people he's not, met and slept with this girl, and within a day, it is true love. This master thief, okay? Spy and thief. Not two jobs which you get a lot of strong moral fiber out of. And they have problems with her pretending to be in love with the ex-boyfriend so they can save the world. I hate the fact that every Hollywood movie has to have a love story. I hate that that's pretty much a requirement. It doesn't matter how stupid it is. It doesn't matter how badly it fits. There has to be a love story in there somewhere. But when you do it like this is just dumb. This love story makes no sense. They just met. They're both morally questionable people. But right after meeting, they're so in love that the idea of lying to this bad guy and pretending to be with him causes both of them severe heartache. I can't ask you to do this. I can't ask you to save the world by lying. You're just a thief and I'm just a spy. How would that work? So, despite the fact that we know what the guy stole, and we know it's a virus, and we know about the cure, this whole next chunk of plot for like the next 20 minutes is our hero finding out all this information we already know. It's very exciting. It's my favorite part of any movie, where I wait for the heroes to catch up to what I already know as the audience. It's always exciting. That's how you do a good mystery, is you show who kills the victim, and then watch as the entire movie the protagonist tries to figure out who the killer is. Meanwhile, you're going to Tim. Right there. That guy. He did it. Right there. What's not to like? Alright. Cutting a relatively thin plot movie even shorter, everybody's caught up now. The bad guy learned that, oh man, when I killed that scientist, he had the virus in his system. Now I gotta go get more of the virus. And Tom Cruise learns he doesn't have the virus. I need to get to where the virus is made and kill it before he can get it. Also, the bad guy has learned that the thief is a double agent. So now they're both racing to go get this virus. That's where we're at. And if I made that sound at all exciting or plot twisty, I apologize for misleading you. The villain actually describes to his cohorts exactly how Tom is going to break into the building to destroy the virus. Because they know each other. They've been in the same agency for a long time. He's read all his files. So while Tom is breaking in, the villain actually kind of narrates what he's going to do and how he's going to do it. The villain knows where Tom is going, and he knows when he's going to be there. He even says to the minute when Tom is going to break in. And is correct. And the villain still arrives on the scene like 10-15 minutes after Tom Cruise gets there. I know where he's going. I know when he's going to get there. Am I going to try and beat him there? Nah. I got to go to the bathroom first. Luckily, Tom has time to destroy most of the virus before the villain arrives. He's down to the last vial and about to destroy it when he pauses so he can have a series of flashbacks. This is a guy whose job it is to regularly accomplish the impossible against all odds. And he can't focus on this task long enough to eradicate this virus off the face of the planet. One pull of the trigger and he's done. But instead, he's going to wait 5 minutes to have a flashback, enabling the villain to show up and stop him. We then get a super fancy shootout scene, running around, shooting guns at each other. Villains shoot 100 bullets, never hits the one good guy. Fairly standard stuff here, although John Woo does make it look good. I would argue, however, that this move does not prevent you from getting shot. As you're sitting there spinning around, your torso, which is the biggest part of you as a target, doesn't move much at all. I mean, okay, you might not get shot in the arm as you're spinning, but dude, you should try somersaults or something. We end at a standoff where the villain sends in the thief to get the virus for him, knowing that Tom will not shoot the true love of his life in order to save the world. Instead, she decides to inject herself with the virus. So now our clock starts ticking. Tom has got 20 hours to find the cure and inject her with it, or else this woman that he's known for a couple of days may die. So Tom decides to break into our villain's super secret underground hideout in Australia. It's a series of caves. And he performs this one-man infiltration by running at the guards really fast and punching them. This is our super secret agent, guys. His method for breaking into this place is to run at the guard really fast and punch them in the face so they're knocked out. This is the kind of thing I would come up with if you asked me to infiltrate a top secret enemy lair. There's also a lot of pigeons in this underground lair. Like, a lot. Every scene that happens in this underground lair involves pigeons in one way or another. I did not know these things were subterranean. Here's where our villain finally describes his master plan. See, he was going to sell the cure and the virus to a biotech agency, a drug manufacturer or some such. It's really a world I'm not very familiar with the terminology of. But instead, he tells the guy, instead of just paying me the $30 million we promised, you're going to sell me more than half of the company. I want 51% of the shares of stock. Because I've just released my girlfriend into downtown Australia. She's infected with the virus. She's going to spread it all over the place. And you're going to be the only company with the cure. Within a couple of days, we're all going to be billionaires. It's actually not a bad plan. I mean, that's it. I don't have anything funny about it. It's not a bad plan. It's the deepest part of this entire movie in that it has more than one step to it. See? Pigeons and running. This is our super spy. Our villain discovers Tom's presence, mainly because Tom sets off a massive explosion and kills a couple of his guards, and sends his henchmen out to finish Tom off. Which he seems to do, except for an expected plot twist that we all saw coming. While Tom Cruise and the henchmen were fighting, Tom Cruise knocked him out, taped his mouth shut, disguised the henchman as Tom Cruise, and disguised himself as the henchman so that he could sneak into the bad guy's main headquarters in this lair, grab the cure, and escape. And it worked. So you're telling me while he's infiltrating this base, running around, he had not one, but two realistic faces hidden in his back pocket, I guess. One of himself and one of the henchmen of the bad guy. So his plan was exactly what happened. He will send the henchman after me, despite the fact that he's a trained enemy agent. He won't come after me himself, despite the number of times I screwed over his plans and his girl. He'll send lesser people to deal with me, one of whom I will have a perfect face replica and voice thingy of, so I sound like him, in my back pocket. We don't see him pull him out of the back pocket. I just don't know where the hell he's hiding two masks. I can't... Did he have more than that? Did he have some of the other henchmen? Did he have one of the enemy agent in case that happened? I don't understand this at all. He wasn't wearing a backpack. He was infiltrating an enemy hideout. And he made sure to pack a couple of realistic face masks. And by the way, when you see those things, they're about this thick. You can't just fold them into little paper-thin wedges. These are thick masks. Just keep going. Rather than explain where those masks came from, we've got time for a motorcycle action sequence. There is no part of this motorcycle sequence that is physically possible. None. And we would be here for hours if I tried to analyze each and every part of it and break it down. I mean, he's popping backwards wheelies, he's spinning around in circles on a dime. Meanwhile, he's shooting all the bad guys with pinpoint precision. Here, let me do a 360 spin and shoot out somebody's tire while doing a backward wheelie. Meanwhile, the villains are in cars and motorcycles going down a straight line, and they can't shoot him. Like, I know the whole Stormtrooper thing where boom, 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 and they never hit anything, but this is spinning backward wheelie, boom, shot out your tire. Meanwhile, you've got a car with a guy in the back seat leaning out the window. His only job is to shoot, and he can't even come close. Anyway, we're not going to address the entire scene, break it down scene by scene. There are two moments I'd like to address, one in the middle and one at the very end. So we're just going to talk about those two and leave the rest of this ridiculous scene alone. Now, I'm sorry. Now, I only have a passing understanding of physics, but I know the second his feet hit the ground, friction would have ripped the bike out of his hand, he would have gone tumbling along the ground, the bike would have flipped way out of control. No, that doesn't work at all, although I would like to see Mythbusters test it. And our sequence ends with this, the most absurd thing ever. That's where they both break several bones in their body and pass out. But instead, both of them manage to get up and start a fist fight. Neither one is limping, neither one is obviously injured in any way, despite the fact that they just collided at like 40, 50 miles an hour and fell off a cliff. No injury sustained by either side. While they duke it out, our thief is about to throw herself off a cliff nearby. The thief that was released in the most densely populated part of Sydney, like an hour ago. Dropped off in the middle of downtown an hour ago. Her job was to spread disease, and now she's in the middle of nowhere about to throw herself off a cliff. The bad guy's plan revolved around her spreading this disease, which, by the way, never comes up again, either. It's never addressed that anybody got sick from this. It never comes up. You're telling me he dropped her off downtown and didn't leave henchmen to watch over her to make sure she didn't teleport out of the city, which is what she clearly did, to the middle of nowhere and kill herself before she could infect the millions of people we're told are going to get infected. You had a plan. It was the most complicated part of this movie. It had 2, maybe 3 steps to it. No. They released her, and she went boop, disappeared, reappeared at a cliff somewhere so she could kill herself. Are we done yet? Tom disables but doesn't kill the bad guy. They're able to get the cure into the thief in time before she dies. They don't mention the fact that this is the only sample of the cure that's out there, and if she did infect millions of people, they needed that in order to synthesize a cure for everybody else. We don't address it, we don't talk about it, but that's fine. So our movie's over, right? Of course not. The bad guy pulls out his gun and tries to take one more shot at Tom Cruise, and Tom Cruise pulls out this. I defy any of you to duplicate this trick on a sandy beach. I would say 20 times out of 20 you would fail to duplicate this trick. This is beyond absurd. And it's the bad guy in that entire sequence just sitting there. There's a couple of times in this movie where people have Tom Cruise at gunpoint, but wait a couple of seconds before shooting. You're up against super spies and you don't want to have maybe the killer instinct. You don't want to shoot first and ask questions later. Captain Mal never put up with this kind of nonsense.
Explain that's best for everyone, okay?
Keep the money.
Darn.
That's our movie. And I know some of you are going to defend it because it's an action film. It's meant to be mindless. You're just supposed to sit back and enjoy it. And you know what? I held this thing to a much lower bar. And it still didn't clear it. I like action films. I like turning my brain off sometimes, munching on some popcorn, and enjoying a good film. This movie wouldn't let me enjoy it. And it's not the overly, beyond absurd love story. Although I hate that he meets the girl and instantly, it is true love forever, meant to be, until the sequel where she's never shown up or mentioned. It's the fact that he regularly performs actions that Superman would find difficult. Bruce Willis limps because he's got glass in his feet in Die Hard. The end of Road Warrior, Mel Gibson is in horrible shape. He can barely stand. because of the damage he suffers throughout the action. It's okay to let your character get hurt. The fact that he's able to work through the pain makes him a better hero. This doesn't do that. This just shows flashy action sequences. There's even one when he's trying to disable guards by running at them and punching them really quick. He runs up, punches the guy to knock him down, and then he does a bizarre backflip and lands on the guy with his leg to knock the guy out. Now, this backflip takes a lot longer than just going BAM would have taken. And in that time, the guard could have cried out easily, and should have. But that's not how this film works. Like Brotherhood of the Wolf, this film is style over substance. I expect a little of that from action films. This one goes way too far. Anyway, I'm done with this. I'll see you next time. Everybody, this is a quick addendum. You've just finished watching the review, and normally that's the end of you having to deal with me, but there was something nagging me, so I went ahead and called a biochemist. Because the supervirus and the antivirus, they explain near the end, the supervirus is a combination of all the strains of influenza. Because then they were going to create a cure to this super influenza, which would cure all strains of influenza permanently, right? And that sounded weird to me. That's their whole, we need to create the monster to create the hero thing. So I went ahead and called a biochemist. And they explained to me the many ways in which that wouldn't work. First of all, combining all the strains of influenza into one bug would apparently radically increase its chances to mutate. You're basically creating a superbug that's going to be extremely difficult to eradicate. And then, even if somehow you were able to create the perfect cure to this superbug, it wouldn't automatically work on all strains of influenza. In fact, see, they were very technical, and this is not my field of expertise, but they talked about some of the proteins would be there to help, but some of the strains could actually impede the bonding process. Basically, it doesn't work like that. That's not science at all. So I just wanted to go ahead and point that out because I didn't want you guys to think that I was picking on the whole supervirus creation thing unfairly. So I did what people in Hollywood should do, and I called somebody who's an expert, and I asked a question. It's not very complicated. Anyway, I'm really done now. Thank you for sitting through this.
Thank you for watching WTF Cinema. Until next time, what the f***, man?
But I don't know if you... This is going to be a long one. Alright.